Welcome to the More Demand podcast, where we help you generate more demand for your products and services. Every episode we give you tips, tricks and tutorials on how to get the best out of your digital marketing. Less frustration, more demand. Here's your host Lawrence Howlett with this week's freshest tips.
Hello and welcome to the More Demand podcast, episode number 20. Do we have an all-star lineup for you today? None other than Rand Fishkin himself, the co-founder of what is today one of the marketing world's fastest growing software companies, Moz.com. Moz focuses on serving marketing professionals with analytics and recommendations to improve their web traffic and customer acquisition through inbound channels such as SEO, social media, content marketing, and more. Today, myself and Rand are going to do a live digital marketing workshop so you know exactly where to get started and what are the most important points for you to focus on. Make sure to grab a notepad for this one. It's absolutely value-packed left, right and centre. So without further ado, let's welcome Rand onto the call. Hi Rand, thanks so much for being on the show today.
My pleasure, Lawrence. Thanks for having me.
So you have a pretty impressive product with Moz. You must be proud. Has there been a top highlight?
Yeah, I think for us, we struggled for many years, to raise venture capital to grow the business. And in 2012, we finally found a Foundry Group out of Boulder, Colorado, and Brad Feld, and they invested in an $18 million round in April of 2012. And that was a good day. That was one of those I'm buying rounds for everybody at the bar.
Yeah, I can imagine. And from that, I mean, you travel a lot for work and pleasure. And I notice also Moz pays towards some of the staff holidays. And I know it's a big goal of most of the More Demand listeners to be able to free up their time and be able to travel more. How do you keep that sort of work-life balance in good order?
Yeah, I mean, for us, one of the ways that I view this from a management and structural perspective is that I am not a believer that the hours that someone works between, say, hour 55 and 60 and hour 90 in a week are productive, useful hours. I don't think that you're getting valuable, high quality time from those. And I would also say that, most every study that's done bears that out, right? That after about 35 or 40 hours, your productivity, the quality of your work goes down substantially in a week. And that's also true over the long term, right? If you have folks who are taking vacations every 3 to 6 months, it turns out that they are producing, on average, much higher quality and better work than folks who are working straight through the year and have, maybe a small break at Christmas or New Year's or something. This model, I think, is one of the reasons why, if I remember correctly, I think France's GDP per capita per hour worked is dramatically higher than the United States is.
Right, sure.
Right? So the French clearly, they're making a lot more money per hour that they actually work than Americans are. And I think that's because they work like 33, 34 hours on an average week. And those are the most productive hours.
Yeah, and I was reading recently a study in Sweden where a company's actually said, right, you're not allowed to work any more than 6 hours a day and you've still got to have 45 minutes for lunch. And that's just to get that productivity level up. Yeah.
I think there's something really powerful to saying, hey, here is this hour or these 2 hours for deep, uninterrupted work. That's when people do really remarkable stuff, when they have that small window, tight deadline, the pressure of doing it in that time, and then the freedom after that to say, I get to explore the world, spend time with my friends and family, cook great meals, do whatever it is that I want. I think that that happiness and that freedom creates great productivity and great creativity.
And that's really important for definitely for small business owners. I know I've been there myself, and in fact, I just told the story on Entrepreneur on Fire, John Lee Dumas's podcast. I told the story of my own personal burnout and how I got through that, and it was just simply putting in way too many hours. And you just think, hang on, it's 9 o'clock at night, time to switch off. Then you can't get sleep, you're not rested, and then you're not getting that high quality work, as you say.
Absolutely.
So the thing that I want to go through today is a bit of a live workshop for those small business owners, maybe in a service-based business, who are looking to generate those high-quality sales leads. Say we've got a budget of around $5,000 a month, about $3,500 in pounds sterling over here, and we want to generate those high-quality leads and prove a return on investment. What would be your starting point? Take us right there and outline what you would be doing sort of right from day one with that company.
I think the biggest thing that any company can do is to have a phenomenal understanding of its audience. What drives the influencers in your field? What do they pay attention to? What do they amplify and promote? What are your leads? Who do your leads listen to? Who do they pay attention to? What do they read? What do they follow? Where are they going online? Why are they going there? And then for your buyers, I think you have to have great answers to the questions. Who make great customer targets for me? Who are people who've been very successful with my product or service? And what do they have in common with each other versus people who maybe are not great leads for me or have come into my funnel in the past, or tried my product or service in the past, but haven't been great customers or happy customers. And if you can identify those traits in those people, if you can identify the influencers, if you can identify what your audience made up of your good customers looks at, then I think you can devise a great marketing strategy. Without that, you're just going to be throwing stuff at the walls and praying.
Yeah, and seeing if it sticks.
Yeah.
So it's about asking yourself the right questions at the start. Who's going to buy from us? Why are they going to buy from us? And then where are they hanging out online? Who are they talking to? And so to get all of that information, what are some of the essential tools and bits of software that you might use that are essential for that role to help create that plan?
Well, the first thing you do is really a completely softwareless practice, in my opinion, which is you've got to talk to those customers, right? And that can be through interviews, it can be over a pint, it can be formal or informal, but you have to spend lots of time talking to those people, understanding their challenges, understanding what they work on in a day. And hopefully you're doing that before you've even crafted your product or service entirely, right? And you have a deep, deep knowledge of this field. So I don't know if you have a specific example, right? But if you're selling farm equipment to, farmers and to industrial, farming operations, you better really understand who those buyers are, right? The individual farm owner who maybe is buying their own stuff is going to be very, very different from an industrial buyer who has a lot of different, farms and is buying a bunch of equipment. And, if you spend a lot of time with those people, you will get to this understanding of who they are and what they are. From there, I think now you can go and start to build, profiles of them. A lot of marketers call these personas, where you're essentially taking a bunch of attributes that you know about a buyer or about a target, and a customer target, and saying, okay, I do know after talking to a lot of them that, these buyers, they use LinkedIn a surprising amount. Like LinkedIn's big for them. That's where they do a lot of their recruiting and interviewing. They all maintain profiles there. They're not big Facebook users. Most of them are not on Twitter. They're not on Instagram or Snapchat. And they're also, but we have found that they're reading these two trade publications that are very big in their field. Basically, every one of them, they always read these trade publications. That's where they do a lot of their own advertising to each other. That's where they read about the latest technology and upgrades in the field. And that we've also identified that there's this conference that most of them go to every year. It's sort of the big event. And that maybe there's some smaller networking events that they also do. So now you've got a profile. You have an understanding of the social networks they use, the sites they visit, the conferences they attend. Great. Now you can go craft that marketing plan. But a lot of that's manual work, right? That's not a ton of software and tools to go create
definitely.
those.
And I mean, I love the point there that you said, go out for a pint, go out for a coffee. It's, that's real world connections, because at the end of the day, we are selling to real people. And I think a lot of people get had up on what a tool can do rather than actually stepping back and going, hang on, what's the principle? What's the foundation behind this before, you get into a tool to help you manage that?
Yeah. I mean, there's tons of tools that we can, and I'm sure we'll probably get to some of them later in this talk, but there's tons of tools that you can use once you have that great understanding. But until you get there, it's really tough. I love the practice of saying, I want to go out for beer. I want to go out for coffee. I have nothing to sell you. I just really want to learn about what you do, right? I'm just deeply interested in you. And I tend to find they love telling you about themselves. Like, this is a fundamental human trait. We want to say, yeah, this is how I got into this business, and this is how I'm doing it, and this is what's hard for me, and this is what's easy, and here's what I use to do all these things. And people like talking about themselves. So I have not generally found a challenge. I think as long as you approach it in a very sort of non-commercial, friendly, straightforward way, like, hey, look, I'm trying to learn more about this market. You do this every day. I would love to interview you. I would love to take you out for a beer and just chat about what's hard for you and what's easy. People say yes to that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it was Pat Flynn or maybe Nathan Barry did exactly that. They said, right, I'm going to be at this coffee shop at this time. Please, if you're in the area, just pop in, say hello. I want to, understand if you're a listener to the SPI podcast or, whatever it is, and just get a bit of an understanding. And then I know Pat Flynn then took it to the next level and did a whole audience research piece. But, that's digressing a bit. But just going out there and having those personable connections is going to mean so much for the next stage, which I guess is building that authority and trust with those people, so that they start to build up that foundation of the relationship.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you how I do this personally. So because I speak at a lot of conferences and events, that is kind of my prime ground for learning about what SEO practitioners are doing. So Moz, for those who might not know, makes software mostly for professional search engine optimization folks, usually in-house or consultants. And so I listen to other SEOs give their talks. I grab them afterwards and I talk to them about what they're doing. Sometimes I'll show them some new tool I'm building or some hacky thing some hacky idea I've got. We'll talk about blog posts that have come out in the industry. We'll talk about what's interesting that Google's doing, all that kind of stuff. And by doing that, I would say I'm at about 30 to 35 events a year. But by doing that really regularly, having those conversations with, honestly, a few hundred professional SEOs every year, I feel like I can really stay in touch with what our field is doing. And that's powerful, even apart from following people on Twitter and checking out their profiles on LinkedIn and seeing what's up on Facebook, all that.
Yeah, because I mean, with a face-to-face chat, you get a few more and maybe a deeper conversation or something that wouldn't be put out on Twitter because maybe they're sort of perfected, giving themselves across as the perfect consultant or whatever. Yes. You don't get behind the scenes, is what I'm trying to say, of that person.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say too, this starts to go into the area of actual marketing strategy and tactics, because I think once you have that understanding, right, I have these conversations with a lot of SEO professionals, and then I find a trend or a theme, right, a frustration that many, many folks share. And when I find that frustration that is shared, then I can say, aha, that is that kernel of truth that I can take and turn into either great content or a product or a tool, a service that then earns amplification, that then earns the interest and attention of the industry, that earns the promotion and amplification by all these other, by all these folks that I've talked to. And when I say, when I reach out and say, hey, we chatted at this conference, you said you had this problem, I wrote this guide about it, right? They're like, wow, that's awesome. Not only do I want to check that out, I want to tell other people to go check it out, right? You've helped me solve a problem. Now I'm going to amplify that. I think that's part of a powerful sort of chain of events that you can do in marketing.
Yeah, and I think it's, as you said there, it's about helping them first rather than thinking, how can they just promote my stuff? Because you get that all day, every day. I mean, I do. You must get it tenfold. Here's my new article. Promote it for me. It just doesn't work like that. You've got to help the influencer first.
Yeah, for sure. And this is, I think this is fundamental to why a lot of marketing campaigns fail, is that folks go, okay, I have this product. How can I promote it? And I think one of the best ways to think about marketing is from the completely opposite stance, which is, okay, I'm serving this audience. How can I help them? How can I make their lives, personal lives, professional lives better? And if you start from that approach, now you get to thinking about, I can create content that will assist them. I can create profiles for them. I can do research and share the charts and graphs that will help them understand their position in the field. I can create tools. I can create software. I can build, things that they will be fundamentally interested in. I think even great advertising comes from this place of speaking a shared language that is only learned through empathy.
Yeah, and I look at, I always bring this up in podcasts, but the Red Bull, content marketing piece where they, they're sending men to the moon almost, where Felix jumped off there. Those content pieces, they've understood their audience. They've understood exactly, what they want. They want, really out there things. They want, adrenaline pumping and, world record beating content, and that differentiates them. But you can do that on a lot smaller scale. So how would you go about that, in our smaller business, sort of taking those leaf from the hat of someone like Red Bull and then working that into a content marketing plan for a smaller business?
I mean, one of the things that I find is that when you are able to identify those shared frustrations, you're often able to create something that solves them or answers them. And many times in a small business, medium business setting, that's much more powerful than, what I'd call the spectacle event,
sure,
right? Like Felix jumping off the platform. I'm not actually sure I would advise many folks to try and, be a spectacle with their content marketing. I would probably urge them to be helpful with their content marketing.
Yeah, solving challenges over being the spectacle.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that if you can solve problems in a unique way, in a way that stands out, in a format that hasn't been done before, with techniques or data and research that hasn't been exposed before, that's really powerful. And that is worthy of attention and worthy of amplification. So one of the things that I like to do, and I've done a lot, is use a tool like Typeform or SurveyMonkey to collect a bunch of data from a number of professionals about a particular problem and how they solve it, and then or a bunch of data about how their particular businesses are doing that is then aggregated and anonymized and then shared out. Because I think we all have this deep desire for benchmarking. Like, we want to understand where we sit in a particular ecosystem, or how our business compares to other businesses like us, or how our solutions to problems compares to other people's solutions. So, for example, right now I'm trying to, I've already collected about 450 responses from owners of search marketing agencies around the world. And I separated those into US and Canada and UK and Europe. And then I'm breaking down all the questions that I asked and, pulling all these charts out. But it's great, right? You can, as an agency owner of a, small business in Stratford upon Avon, for example, they can go look at, here is the distribution of how much other agencies pay their employees in the UK on average, and how much, I know how much I'm paying. I want to see how much everyone else is. Wow, that's phenomenal data. Of course I'm going to go read that.
Yeah.
Right? I can't resist reading that.
I'm going to go and read that when it's out.
Yeah, right. Like, it's fundamentally interesting data. And I think if you can identify that, if you can find things that lots of people have a problem with, and then you can go and find that information, or you can collect it through surveys or through research, you can have terrific success.
So with that sort of in mind, we're building that authority and we're building that trust. We're setting ourselves apart from the competition. One thing that a lot of people always ask me is, should we be creating authority as Lawrence that works at More Demand, or should we be building brand authority and including lots of team members? Or should, like you do at Moz, should you be the sort of spearhead of Moz, for example? How would you do that in a smaller business setting?
I think especially for founders and owners, it is great to if you yourself are the content creator, I think it's phenomenal to be the point person for the brand. People connect with people, even with major brands. You brought up Red Bull, and I have this association with Felix Baumgartner, right? The guy who jumped with that brand. Like, I have the human association with Virgin. I have an association with Richard Branson. With Google, I know who Larry and Sergey are, and Eric Schmidt, right? With Yahoo now, it's Bill Gates, right? Is the guy from Microsoft. I think it is fundamental to the human experience that we form connections with other people, and that brands have human connections. So if you can brand yourself as part of your company, I think that's a wonderful thing to do. I even encourage folks to do it with their employees. I think it's great to build up an employee's profile and to associate them with your brand. And if they leave, they leave. That's actually okay. I don't think that's a terrible thing. And I think that when you show that you can have multiple people at a brand that are producing great work, that are influencing their industry, that's actually quite powerful. And I think more people pay attention to a brand because of that, rather than sort of following the individuals off wherever they go.
Yeah, and I think, getting that entire team buy-in, people might think, oh, yeah, but I'm not a content writer. Well, you don't actually need to be a content writer. I've worked with a lot of teams that I've gone into, for example, the workshop of a garage, the workshop of a motorbike garage, and said, we need some articles, some great content creating, about Harley Davidson motorcycles, can we write some content? And they've looked at me blankly and gone, I can't write, but it's working with them to say, right, well, what are some of your experiences? Tell us some stories, and then getting, maybe a content writer or something like that involved, just to then pretty up and get it on the website.
Yeah, I think that can be great. I think it's also very possible when we say content, I'm worried that some folks tune out and they think that must mean written content. That must mean a blog post or a guide or a white paper. But content can be an almost infinite number of things.
Yeah.
Photographs can be content. Video can be content. A podcast, right? An audio interview can be content.
Absolutely.
A taped talk of you presenting something can be content. A tool that you build could be content, right? A calculator to help people solve some particular problem. Survey results can be content. Research can be content. That list is so long that I found virtually everyone can contribute in some way to content. I've seen folks who they're not content writers or anything like that, but they can illustrate, they can draw. Great.
Perfect.
Awesome. That is something we can we can leverage that skill. We can make that valuable.
And I also think, once you've got a set of foundation of content, you can then look at repurposing that again and again, creating little snippets and looking to change maybe a video into a slide share. And there's a whole world of then repurposing.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of the reasons that I love data-driven content, is because there's so many different ways to slice and dice data and to look at it, to visualize it, to present it, from a stage, to put it into SlideShare, to write a post about it. I really do love starting with data when it comes to content creation and sharing. It's not the only way to go, but it can be a powerful one.
Yeah, no, that's a really good tip, and so now we've created some great content, and we've built some authority in that. How do we start to measure the return on investment on our content marketing? What are the? I mean, I think Moz has got the one metric, and what are some of the important KPIs, key performance indicators around content marketing return on investment?
Yeah, I think a good way to look at this is from a funnel perspective, right? So if you can do this across your website, Google Analytics makes this relatively easy and possible. You'll have to do some extraction and adding some tags, but it is quite doable. And Google Analytics is free, which is nice too. Which is basically to say, build a little funnel, even just on a whiteboard. Draw a whiteboard. Now, last month, how many visits did you get to the site? First time and returning visits. At the very top of your funnel, you've sort of got your first time. The next step, you've got returning visits. And the third step, I want you to go to the report that shows you how many times people have visited the site, and take the folks who've been to your site 6 to 10 times in a month, and that make that your next step in the funnel. Now go and look at how many people actually visited product pages or sales pages, right? Pages where there was a conversion event possible. And that could be, they gave you their email address for a lead, or they bought your product if you're an e-commerce company, or they signed up for something, whatever that conversion event is. How many people actually got to the page that collects that info? Then how many people successfully completed it? Now you've got essentially a view of your funnel, right? And you can say, oh, okay, we had this many visits from, and here's where they came from. Here's these different channels. Here's how many of them returned. Here's how many came back a lot. Here's how many saw our product pages or our conversion pages. And here's how many actually converted. And now as you grow those channels, right? So yeah, we made a big investment in doing more sharing on Twitter and Facebook. And we can see that our audience on those grew, and the traffic to our site grew by 20%. Okay, now what effect did that have on people who saw product pages? Was it equally high, or did people not make it to those conversion pages? And then over time, you can measure these things, but you've got to give it time, right? A campaign that drives social traffic, because social traffic is so, one and done in their style of visits, you've got to measure over a long period. So, I would urge you to say, hey, let's take a 6-month campaign for social, and then let's look back over 6 months. And at the end of 6 months, you might say, aha, we're seeing signs that in the last 2 and 3 months, those folks who have visited us from social many times have come back, subscribed to things, visited the site again and again, and now they're making it to the conversion pages, and some of them are signing up.
Yeah, like I think a lot of people, you make a good point there about giving it time, because a lot of people read, they read a lot of posts that say, oh, this overnight success, I had 10,000 subscribers in 24 hours, but they haven't seen the 10 years of work that's gone up to that point. And it is about having time, and time is your friend, and, building this up. I know if you've got, payroll to make, and, the pressures are high, but this takes time, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. The way I think about it, for a lot of small and medium businesses, this is not about you need to write a blog post every day, or you need to try and get 4 pieces of content out and do a Facebook share every day and that kind of thing. You can set a cadence that works for you, and that could be, hey, you know what? Every week we're going to do something that is worthy of interest or attention from our audience, and we're going to share those on our social channels. Just once a week, right? And it could be we have a new event. It could be maybe we've got some new equipment. Maybe we've hired someone. Maybe whatever it is. Okay, we're going to set a small cadence. And then we're going to say once a quarter, we're going to produce a great piece or update a great piece of content. And I think virtually everyone can plan 4 pieces of content for a year.
Yeah, sensible.
Right? If you can't, if that is too much, right, and that 90-day window to get something out is too much, okay, once every 6 months. First half of the year you have a piece, second half of the year you have a piece. That can actually work fine. There are companies out there, brands out there, who produce 1 piece of content every year, but because it's very high quality, because it's very well known in their industry, because it's incredibly useful, and they have empathy for their audience and they know what they need, everyone knows that company because of it. As an example, in the technology world, everyone in my field knows knows who Kleiner Perkins, Caulfield and Byers is, KPCB, because once a year, every year, they put out their Mary Meeker's State of the Internet report. It's a report that we all look forward to every year. It only comes out once, but it has a tremendous amount of data. It's usually a 150-page slide deck with a ton of aggregated data about what's going on in the technology, web world, social world, And I don't think she even does any primary research. She's just collecting other people's primary research and putting them into this format. And it's remarkable.
Yeah, and right? I bet other people then feed off that as well.
Yeah. Tons of people create other content off of it and all that kind of stuff. But that one piece of content a year is all it takes for her to be well known and for that brand to be well known.
Yeah, so I think, with that, a lot of our listeners, maybe have created that one single content piece, or maybe they've created a few different content pieces, maybe some infographics or something, and they're just getting zero engagement, and they're getting a tiny bit fed up of no comments or likes. And I know this will resonate with a ton of our audience. What's some sort of quick fire tips that can just boost that up a little bit to get you maybe even your first comment or your first share?
I think the way I always think about content is don't bother creating content unless you have a great answer to this question. Who will help amplify this and why? And I don't mean who in terms of, I think if I make this report for search marketers that search marketers will help amplify it. No, that's too broad. I mean, find Mary and Lawrence and Tiffany and like these five people, actual people who or who work in the field or who you're targeting, who are influencers, and say, I know if I create this piece, they will help share it, right? And then I think you've got then you're onto something, right? Because if you can actually identify those people and they have their reasons why they're sharing it, usually you can find more people like them. And all you have to do is get the piece of content in front of those eyeballs for people to share it. I think one of the biggest problems in content is that people think of content creation. What's the right way to say this? They think of content creation as just an activity, like that
something that needs to be done.
Right. That it's like putting away all the boxes on the shelf. Right. And once I put all the boxes on the shelf, well, then things will be organized and then it's done. And content is not like that at all. Right. Content is a creative endeavor. The quality of the work and the degree to which it connects with its audience and its audience's influencers determines how well it will do. And sometimes a piece of content with 10 sentences and no visuals will get thousands and thousands of shares because it resonated so well. And, the infographic that you poured hours and days into won't, because it didn't resonate with the audience, because you didn't have a great answer to the question, who will help amplify this and why? Because it didn't serve its audience well. It didn't tell them non-obvious things that they all the things that were in your infographic, they already knew. And the graphical format actually made it harder to read than if it was just text. And the statistics in there were not well cited, and so people didn't know if they could really trust them, and on and on, right? So that's my advice on that.
So, yeah, I mean, you pointed out there, getting that influencer amplification. And I think also we can use influencers to help actually create the content as well. Not only amplify it, get citations, get quotes, and then you get their buy-in to it before you've even created it.
Yeah, I mean, I worry a little bit. I think that the classic, like, hey, I'm looking for a quote on this because I'm going to do a roundup of all these influencers coming. I think that's been done to death, and a lot of influencers are sick of it and know that you're only asking them because you want them to share it, that kind of thing. But I think what you can do, and that I have seen be very effective, is to say, hey, I know this influencer is deeply interested in this topic. I know they have a challenge around getting this information or getting this data or presenting data that they've already collected in a useful, interesting, amplification-worthy way. And therefore, I'm going to, take inspiration from that, create that content, and then share it with them and say, hey, Rand, I made this graphic that shows off some of the, biggest pieces of advice you've given around SEO over the years. And what do you think of it? Right. That kind of thing I think can work better than just will you give me a quote?
Yeah, because I want you to share my content piece.
Right.
Been there, done it for sure. No, that's some really, really great advice. And to wrap up the show today, I just wanted to do a couple of quickfire questions, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah. So, are there any apps or websites or services that you wish you would have thought of instead of Moz?
One I'm really jealous of is SurveyMonkey. Actually.
Okay, cool.
It's such an incredibly simple business model, like from an engineering standpoint, that's not to say they don't have some complexity, but from an engineering standpoint, just so insanely easy. And yet really, really terrifically awesome business, right? Lots of built-in barriers to entry, lots of natural virality from taking surveys and sharing with people. So yeah, that one.
Okay, good. And the final one, have you found a good source of yellow shoes yet? I know it's a bit of a trademark for you. I spotted some in Amsterdam recently, but I think they might be a little bit heavy for you. So just wondering how you're getting on with that.
I have a couple pairs, but I haven't found some in a long time. So yeah, I'll keep my eyes open.
So there we go. If we want to impress Rand, buy him some yellow shoes and he might just share your content.
It's totally fine. Very kind offer.
Brilliant. So where can people find out a bit more about Rand and Moz as well?
Yeah, obviously Moz.com is our website. I write semi-regularly on my personal blog, which is at moz.com/Rand. And then every week on the Moz blog with Whiteboard Friday. And that's at moz.com/blog.
Cool. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being on the More Demand podcast, Rand. It's been a really, truly insightful episode. So thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Lawrence.
Well, folks, that's it for another episode of the More Demand podcast. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Thanks for listening to the More Demand podcast. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on iTunes and get the latest episode direct to your device every Wednesday.